Hello again. Welcome to Grandpa Snippets number 20, and this is the third one out of four that has to do with the timeline of man on earth. Uh, Today we're going to talk about the Ezekiel war of 38 and 39. That's the two chapters in Ezekiel, 38, 39. Sad to say, I've seen six major wars that the United States have been in my lifetime. I've seen that, and some skirmishes that they have gone through. So now we've done the past. That was the first one. Last week we did currently where we are today. Today, on this third out of the fourth one, we're going to look into the future, into tomorrow. So the best way to look into tomorrow that I can figure out is to put a character in here. Tomorrow. Let's take the first three letters, T-O-M, Tom. So we're going to deal with Tom and choices he is going to have to make for what comes up in the future. He has two different roads to take. Which one will he take? It all centered around this first illustration. Here is the church. Now, this is when I refer to the church, I'm not referring to a building. I'm going to refer to people who make up the church. Church, C-H-U-R-C-H. You are in the center. People, you are, make the church. Then I've got what I call the reset. We talked about when they reset and want to put everybody under control. And then I have what I'm going to call the Ezekiel War, the big blow up in the Middle East, and then starts the 7 years. So, here's the way it would happen. Christ comes and takes his church out, the people that we're talking about. He takes them out. Then the reset starts. The reset, we'd say a reset button, or they want to reset everything, bring everything under control in the world. Then comes, right after the reset, there comes a war in the Middle East. And that's where most prophetic people place it, is right after the church is gone. And it's a war that we'll explain here in a minute. And when that blow up is over, then this reset actually takes off and lights up and has the last 7 years, and the Antichrist, the person who will control, has the answers for everything to put the world back together, and this will start the last 7 years after the war. So, with all that in mind, let me take a look here at the future. So how are things shaping up? There are several countries to the south of Israel. You've been hearing about it on news. It's called the Abraham Accords. You've heard about the different countries signing peace agreements with Israel. Trade agreements, peace agreements are going to get along. So they're to the south. And they are more of a moderate, more of a lighter line Muslim countries. But to the north, you have Turkey, and over here you have Iran, and you have Russia. They are more these countries, a lot of them that are connected with Turkey, which is presently Syria too, which they are the more hardline Muslim people. They're the ones that are really against Israel. And so we find that there's going to be a war, that this northern group is going to come down and they're going to fight Israel. Now, what would cause them to do that? When you look in Ezekiel chapter 37, 38, and 39, you find that they are led by Russia because there is something that Israel has that they want. What they basically want is the wealth, or right now it appears to be the gas supply and the oil supply that Israel has. God in his providence has opened up about 5 years ago a tremendous wealth of, I don't know, hundreds of trillions or what of cubic feet or however they measure it, of gas that has made them extremely rich until they are selling their products to Europe. Well, Europe used to buy their product of gas from Russia. They're not doing that anymore. And Russia is hurting because their economy is hurting, Turkey's hurting, and Iran is hurting. Now, especially Turkey and Russia need their economy built. They are looking for energy, both of those countries, in the deepest way. And so the best way to get it would just go take it off of Israel. So that brings us up to the place that, okay, the church is gone. Talked about Tom. Tom didn't know Christ, so he's been left behind. So he sees this war take place between Israel and between the northern countries. They are so outpowering Israel that God has to come in, and in those chapters of Ezekiel, you'll see God comes in and wins the war, and he will kill 5 out of 6 of those soldiers that attacked Israel. What God said in Ezekiel chapter 39 and verse 7, I will do this so that all the world will see my glory, that I really am God. I am who I say I am. And Tom will wake up to see the fact that he does realize that God is God, just like he says in the scriptures, and that he has done what he said he would do in the scriptures. So then what happens that after the war, then you take the last 7 years are going to begin. The Antichrist, the one who's going to make an agreement with Israel, he will confirm, Daniel 9:27 says, he will confirm the treaties or the agreements or whatever that appears what he's going to agree to, that they should have that land. And he's going to come in and say, I'll be your protector. I will take and protect you and watch over you. And so he will reset everything with Israel and also come in as a great protector to the world. Those countries around the southern part of Israel will say, go ahead and build a third temple. We are not really that fond of the Dome of the Rock. We think of Mecca. And so the strong northern are gone. And so the Antichrist will make an agreement so that they can build their temple. And Tom will watch that temple being built. He will watch the Antichrist taking over and taking control. But he'll notice that who came in as a light and was going to heal and help everything in the world, he begins to see the Antichrist begin to wage war against those who do not agree with him. And Tom's going to see some of the most terrific wars that this world has ever seen. And they will go on during the first part of those 7 years. There's a good promise that we'll catch in our next snippet is that those who have known Christ and have been taken out as with the church, they will miss this wrath or all of this that's coming on the world. But Tom hasn't made his choice for Christ, so he's going to have to go through and into these last 7 years. He has a huge decision to make now. It has come to the place that the Antichrist is going to take and to have everybody take a mark of allegiance to him. Like we said in the last snippet, not only bear the arm, maybe if it's a vaccine, because they're putting tracers in vaccines, will in the future, that will automatically read whether you have taken the allegiance. But you'll bow your knee, acknowledge him as God. So he'll have this huge decision to make. And that is found in Revelation chapter 13. Now, if he decides not to take it, he might be lucky and be able to squeeze out 3 or 4 more years of his life, but that's the max that he will get. The other choice is to refuse the mark and to guarantee that he can go to be with God in heaven. And this is how it will be. He'll refuse to bow, refuse to take the mark, but when he does that, he will be isolated by the Antichrist and his group, and he will be executed, and the Bible specifically says it will be by beheading. But if you read in Revelation chapter 6 and 7, Tom is seen then in heaven with this huge group. It's a beautiful song in chapter 7 of those who said that God has spared them and protected them or at least taken them on to heaven. I would invite you to read it. If he would try to play hide and seek and not take the mark, he still would die of starvation. For how long is 7 years? Say Tom has a child, and say the child begins kindergarten. So if you take kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, that's 7 years. So that 7 years is from going into kindergarten, finishing grade school, and getting ready to go into junior high school. 7 years is not a short period of time. So it means that he has a lot to contend with. One thing that if he should decide to not take the mark, he's not going to have any finance, so he would be killed. But regardless of whether you do or not take the mark, there is going to be a system of finances which is called global, crypto. Get the word cryptocurrency, which means that everybody's cut off from spending money. There is no way that you can spend money. It will just be just a little collection piece. I know all these coins here that I have gotten from all the different countries I was in Europe. They're just kind of like things I just remember by, but they're no value. I can't spend them here in America. And when I was in Germany, we called it the land of the folding nickel, because this was a 5-cent piece in U.S. currency. Soldiers were not allowed to have U.S. currency, but they had us have our coins in paper money. So I just have it as a souvenir. So money back then will mean nothing either, or in the future will mean nothing. Cryptocurrency, you'll be loaded into the technology system, you'll be paid into it, and you will buy out of it, and if you do not take the mark of the beast, the way it appears will happen is you will not be on the register, and you can't buy or sell, or you can't buy anything or trade anything or have a job and make any money, for you have no account for it to go in and out because you did not pledge allegiance to the Antichrist. You are actually virtually cut off. Now, God is a God of great mercy, and he doesn't want Tom to perish. He doesn't want Tom to have to go through this. So he offers salvation now, that he would be able to be removed from that time. And we know that we have spoke about that's called the rapture, or the removal. The rapture or the removal of the church. Now, after the church is gone and snatched away, God's grace is still very active on earth. He'll still love every man, woman, boy, and girl till the very end. And we see in Revelation chapter 7 that God begins, after the 7-year begins, where we had the light, and that last 7-year kicks in. God is going to raise up 144,000 preachers who will circle the globe and preach the gospel to every man. You'll have 2 witnesses, which will be seen on everyday television, smartphones, or whatever, preaching the gospel from the city of Jerusalem, warning people not to take the mark of the beast. And there will be an angel circling the earth, warning them not to, because once they take the mark, it means their soul would be damned forever, which that he's trying to prevent people from doing that. So Tom will be greatly warned that when the time comes that they will approach him to accept the mark, he should not take it, because it will doom his soul. If he does, it will doom his soul forever. So they have to willingly give up their life, Tom would, to this reset society, because the reset society is out to do particularly one thing, is to eliminate everybody from society that does not want to go along with this new system, which is supposed to rid the world of all the problems. But what it's going to do is going to implode and explode, and with a great implosion of problems, and destroy man. So the society is run and controlled by the Antichrist, or actually the devil first, the dragon, who is over the Antichrist and over the false prophet. And in Revelation 13, we see the control is on the masses. As we said before in the last snippet, control, 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 conformity, conformity. And we are being conditioned for that right now. So I am sad to say that as we look at presently the government of America for these next few years, they really have pledged their allegiance, or their offices are leaning completely towards the One World, or the WEF Forum, the World Economic Forum.org, we said you could go look at. And so America apparently is going to move greatly, very swiftly, I'm believing, in that direction. And that will curtail a lot of things that we're used to, and their life is going to be different. So the 7 years come to a climax in Revelation 19. Earth is a war zone. There is fires, there is devastations, there is volcanoes, there's earthquakes, there's storms, there's meteorites. Just as you read through Revelation, it's just a fearful thing to wake up each morning. Scripture says you wait so you go to bed at night to get away from them, but then you wake up in the morning glad to get away through the night. So the earth returns to chaos, or goes to chaos. So at Revelation 19, we find Tom comes back with the group who have lost their lives, or given up their lives really, to be with Christ in heaven. He brings them back along with us who have already been taken, the 2 groups together, the church and the martyred saints. And in chapter 19, Christ comes back to set up his kingdom on earth. And he will be the Lamb that will come and set up the perfect society. It says in the Old Testament that the lion and the lamb will lay down together. It says that production will be tremendous, and man will study war no more. So we find that Christ meets the Antichrist and destroys him. And Tom will be with the victory side if he has made that choice not to take the mark. And Tom will see that Christ will throw the Antichrist and the false prophet into the lake of fire and bind Satan for 1,000 years. So if we would go back to where we had past, and then we had the present, and now this is the future, that all would climax a total of 6,000 years. And then you add 1,000 for Jesus' control. That's 7. 6 and 1 and equals 7. That's God's perfect number. So God had us all planned out, and it's right on schedule, and it's just soon to wind up. So we find that Tom is going to, after the end of the 7,000th year with Christ, then live eternally with him. For Christ is going to make a brand new heaven and a brand new earth, and there will be war no more and sin no more or anything that will go astray. So Tom has a big decision to make if he missed the church when it was raptured. He has to decide whether to go with the Antichrist or not. I hope I've made it as clear as possible what happens in case he does take the mark. He will be lost forever. If he does not, then he has a glorious return with Christ. Now the rabbis of Israel say today that the return of Christ is coming very soon. And we, or mankind, we can see it falling into place, see what's going on around us. This is not something to fear, not something to dread or to be upset about. For in 1 Thessalonians 4:18, it really says we should be comforted with the fact to know that Christ is coming. So we will have life as God intended it to be. The joys we will receive far out, just go beyond our imagination. We can't begin to think about it. So I'll guarantee you, as I close, I'll guarantee you this. The first 10 seconds in heaven, you're going to forget everything about things on earth, and you're going to see so much ahead of you, so much God has prepared for you, that this will have no comparison at all. And we will be thrilled to the bottom of our heart, the bottom of our soul. Now, in the next and the final one, we have the fourth lesson. I want to show you some places that all this comes from, for it all comes from the Bible, God's Word, which it says will all come to pass. So we want to back up these 3 stations with where it came from and how to make it a little more clear to you. So thank you for listening, and we'll have one more to go and be back with you. Thank you very much.